You guys just saw me unloading and loading a bunch of cars. The first was that, I forgot what year it is, Trans Am. The customer is going to restore that, so he wants to freshen up the engine. Might have to do a rebuild, so I got to pull the engine out and take a look at that and see what we have to do with that. He said when he bought it, he said the customer told him it had a rod knock. So maybe we just got some worn out bearings. Hopefully nothing heavily damaged. We'll get into that in a later date. What was it? The next one was that Maserati that I was loading up and taking back to the customer's place that has the car collection. That sat out here for a little bit because he bought it at the auction and it does not start. And I think I may have touched on that on a live stream, and I've got to figure out why that's not starting. The main thing that's telling me it may be transmission related is because it has got a automatic manual transmission. Transmission's in the rear, kind of like a Corvette. It's got the torque tube and the clutch is on the engine, and to shift that, it's got a weird shifter lever in the center console and then paddle shifters, and when you pull in, you're supposed to be able to shift to neutral if you pull in on the paddle shifters on the steering wheel, and it says gear not available. So right there, that tells me that it's not shifting into gear properly. Maybe there's an electric motor that's gone bad, something like that, maybe wiring. And when I actually went and picked it up for him from the auction because no other tow truck company would touch it, and I had to winch it on and it was turning the engine over, and I had no way of putting dollies underneath it or anything. Today I'm going to do a bunch of stuff. First is this 04 F-150 that I got in. I put this engine, it's a reman engine from a place, I'm not going to say where just because things happen. I put it in July. Thing's only got about 5,000 miles on it, and it started knocking on him. And so this thing, we did an initial oil change by the manufacturer. What they recommended was not to use synthetic oil and to run it for 500 miles, change oil, and then follow the OEM oil changes, which I'm roughly around 5,000 miles. And I think I got it back to him. I put about 100 miles or so on it. He put around 400 miles on it, and then got it back to me. I changed oil on it, and then now it's actually due. It's about 205,000. I changed it around 205,000. So it put 5,000 miles on it, and the engine's showing metal. So it's this one here, and you can start to see some flakes in there. I also use this coffee filter. Let's see if you can see. I don't know, camera's not picking it up, but there's quite a bit of glitter. Let me get a flashlight. It's still not really showing any, but it's more than I'd want to see on a fresh engine. Now, are you going to get metal in the system on a fresh engine? Yeah, you're going to. But it's more than I'd want to see. And so basically I'm not at the mercy, but I have to go through the steps properly to make sure I follow what the manufacturer wants me to do on diagnosing. Sadly, I have a feeling that they're most likely going to want me to tear this thing down to the point of failure to figure out what it is that failed, and they'll evaluate how they want it fixed. Most remanufacturers, once you get it figured out, they want to send you a replacement. That way there's no ifs, ands, or buts about anything. They've done the major repair, replacement. They'll ship you something that you don't have to touch. That way they kind of control their quality. So I left a message with them, so I'm waiting to do that. I put a new oil filter on this thing now. I'm going to back it out and pull in the tow truck, and our next goal in this video is to get that thing running. I need to get it running for the customer, and for myself, it's been sitting too long, so let's get that thing going. Okay, so I didn't record putting everything back together in the engine bay because if you don't remember, this truck was in a friend's shop back in 2020 in Jeff City, Missouri. A tornado went through, took out his shop, and not completely took it out, but the roof was collapsed and everything. They had to drag this truck out, and it was disassembled in the shop. So a lot of stuff is missing. He's gathered up a lot of stuff, and I need to check with him on basically anything I had to put into it that I had sitting extra. Thankfully, I just disassembled another truck, and so I have a lot of extra parts that this needed. I needed the driver's battery tray, the charge air cooler pipes, which I'm sure he has. They're probably sitting there, he just didn't grab them. What else? Just a lot of little odd and end bolts. And you know, when a tornado goes through, you're gonna lose stuff. So right now, I've got pretty much everything in there. I don't have coolant in it, and I need to get fuel, but I need to drop the tank too. But right now, I want to make sure the engine cranks and we're making oil pressure. Okay, I tried cranking on it a little bit, or I did crank on it a little bit, and basically just to build up some oil pressure, made sure oil was getting in the oil filter. I've added some coolant to it. What else? I topped off the power steering, made sure our oil level was good. I'll check it again later. Right now I have, this is a makeshift fuel tank, return line, suction line, and once we get it running and moving and everything, I've got other things I've got to do on the truck. Like I got to take the PTO, or the hydraulic pump that's driven by the PTO on the transmission. I've got to take that off and put a plate on. I need to drop this tank and clean. Actually, I may not even drop it, but well, I probably still have to, because I'll have to clean it and get junk out of it, because we're suspecting that it's kind of nasty in there, and I want to make sure it's not delaminating, or basically the lining coming loose. And I think there's locally some places that can fix that if it is bad inside. That way we can save some money. I need to get the brakes done because the brakes were locked up on it. You can see I have caliper hanging. We're going to get new brake lines there, and probably rebuild the calipers on this. I got to get parking brake shoes and a new dust shield on this. Actually, I'll do probably dust shield, parking brakes, regular service brakes, and then I'll do the front too. Just make sure this thing's good running. So let's crank on this thing and see if we can get it running. Making oil pressure, my gauge is showing. Let's double check to make sure we still have good oil in it. I'm sure I dumped 16 quarts in it, so I'm sure it's fine. Yeah, about halfway on the dipstick. Let's make sure we're getting fuel up here. Like it. Fuel. I don't have my scan tool with me, so if it doesn't start on this go around, then we'll just wait till tomorrow and I'll get my scan tool. Okay, so along with, I'm going to try to do more filming of just everyday stuff that I'm doing, just to kind of show you guys what I do. I mean, a lot of you guys do the same stuff, but that way maybe something I'm doing will help you fix something or see a faster way, or maybe you, I don't know, just helps you. Anyway, I got a 2009 Yukon Denali, and the customer is saying that he notices that it sways a lot whenever he drives down the road, and I figured it's probably sway bar end links, and it is. So let me grab a creeper and I will show you guys. Okay, so it's this style with the rod and the bushings. You can see that bushing here. Bushing up here is worn out, so it's got tons of play, nothing's happening. And the other side is the same way, bushings are worn out. And boot starting to leak there. Note that, let them know about that. But I'm going to replace these real quick. Let's get these sway bar end links knocked out, and then we'll drive it and see how it does on driving, see if anything else feels loose in the front end. But I'll shake the front end down also, and I'll update you guys if I find anything. What am I doing here? Oh, I'm trying to get my IDS going, so I select which VCM I was using. So I was cranking and it wouldn't start. Didn't show you guys any data log or anything because I hadn't that time. Off camera I data logged it, but we're going to do it again. So once I get that up, I've got, if you can see, I don't know if you guys can see that. Basically, this is a Harbor Freight oil pressure gauge set, and it's got a fitting that fits in the port on the secondary fuel filter housing out there. It leaks a little bit, but it does the job. So I keep meaning to figure out how to get it to seal up properly and then put a valve on it, like the Ford fuel tester kit that actually lets you, when the engine's idling, crack that valve, run that return line back to the fuel tank, the fuel filler neck, and then you can simulate the fuel system on basically the demand on a fuel system wide open throttle, so under load, and that way you can then test, because you can have good fuel pressure at idle, key on and at idle, and then you lose it, or you can have well, I just said that, key on and then you're cranking and you lose fuel pressure. So let me get the IDS set up and we'll get started data logging. Okay, I got everything up. So I'm referring to something I've used basically when you feel like you've gone over everything in your head. Ford back in the 6.0, 7.3, actually it started back with, I think, the, what's it called? 6.9? I'm almost positive. When they had the 6.9 diesel, they had these hard start, no start diagnostic guides. So you'd go through, I remember having to fill these out for warranty claims. So they wanted you to go through these, fill out all the information up at the top, and then go through each step and basically come to the conclusion at what was the issue for a hard start or no start condition. So there's a page before that has you check codes and electrical stuff and some other things. It's some of the basic look over, but I know that's all good, so I'm going to go over the second page. Starts at step 9, which the first one is key on, engine off, injector electrical self-test, the buzz. They called it the click test. Everybody knows it as a buzz test. All my injectors are clicking. I'll actually show you real quick. I'm going to do that. You guys could hear all 8 were clicking. So since that tests good, our next is basically going over data while we're cranking. First we need to check key on, engine off, and then cranking. So the first one is our PCM voltage. And I need to pull that one up now that I think about it. I had it up earlier, or last time. We'll go and pull B+. Battery voltage, PCM voltage. We got our FICM L power. That needs to be minimum 8 volts. Cranking 11.5 volts minimum ignition on, engine off on FICM L power and FICM M power. Is that right? Yeah, okay. So L and M power need to be, no, L and V, sorry. L and V need to be basically battery voltage with key on, minimum of 8 volts cranking on L and V. FICM M power needs to be, actually they're saying 45 volts minimum. Through years now, most FICMs are 48 volt, so they probably need to be around 48. So if you're 45, 48, this engine should start. As long as, you know, that's good. If you're seeing anything lower than that and you have starting conditions, that could be your issue. We need at least 100 RPM cranking. Our ICP needs to be 500 PSI minimum. ICP voltage needs to be 0.8 volts. IPR voltage needs to be 45 volts, if I'm seeing that correctly. That seems excessive, but I'm not seeing a decimal in front of it. Maybe an issue. But I can't read IPR voltage with the computer. I can only read the duty cycle. IPR is a greater than 60% duty cycle. ICP demand. Okay, that's that. Fuel pulse width when cranking is 500 US. I forgot what that means. Or up to 2 milliseconds. I forgot what that US means. But it's another way of telling time. Obviously milliseconds is less than seconds. And then our FICM sync is yes or no. We need yes when cranking. Let's run the data log real quick. Let's crank. I will watch fuel pressure. I'll try to kick the camera around. And let's see here. Fuel pressure's coming up. It's still not much. ICP is now finally coming up. Slowly, we have fuel pressure. Yeah, you can hear the engine slow down. Yeah, we got plenty of ICP. We got fuel. And I forgot to hit record on this. Oh, son of a gun. Okay, let me do this without you guys. I'll try to throw it up, or I'll do a screenshot or something and let you watch next time I'm cranking, and I'll show you guys. Okay, so I was cranking on it again to record on my laptop to show you guys the data, and it actually started to hit. You could actually, the engine was starting, some of the cylinders were starting to fire, so it might actually start. If it does, it does. It's just basically one of those things. I believe what I believe is actually happening is this engine hasn't ran in a very long time. I didn't get into the lower end, and when it didn't run for like 2 years before I got it. Sadly, I've had it for about a year. That's what I'm trying to get it done. So I have a feeling the rings are stuck, or they're just not sealing. So basically, the engine's cranking over pretty good. It's still acting like it's got some compression, but if it doesn't have enough, it's not going to fire that fuel. It's not going to combust that fuel. So that's what I'm trying to do right now, or that I'm hoping, cranking on it, making sure everything's right, is basically freeing up those rings, getting fuel in the cylinders. Can do that as well. It can start dissolve some of that junk. So I will crank on it again and see if it fires. You can hear it. He's running. Okay. Awesome. Pick this charger. Make sure it's charging. Okay, I'll be right back. It's gonna be loud back here. But I dropped the fuel tank. You see I'm still attaching these lines using this tank as my fuel tank. I got it strapped down just so I can move this around. I need to finish with the inside seal, putting it back together. Our ABS light's on most likely because the speed sensor is disconnected to the left front. I'll get that. I'm gonna finish assembling what I can in the interior, putting things together to try to get that close to done. I need to get the door panel from the guy that originally was working on the truck. He told me he has it, so I need to get that. I got to order, because originally when this got delivered to me, tow truck said the wheel was locked up. Well, this left rear wheel was locked up, the parking brakes, everything were a mess. And you can see I was having a hell of a time getting that parking brake on this side disengaged. So I'm going to order parking brake assemblies, maybe rebuild the calipers or new ones, new lines, rubber lines, and the hard lines look fine. I don't see anything that jumps out. Somebody's already reran a factory line there, it looks like, but we're going to get cables, so we're getting close.